Yeah, it's on. Okay. Is it on? Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to be here at droidCon London speaking in front of a bunch of people, which I didn't expect. My name is Lara. I'm an Android developer, and I'm based in Berlin. And I got my first job about three and a half years ago in tech. So we can say that I'm not new into tech in the sector, but I still find shocking that we have to talk about seniors and juniors and. But I'm very glad that we have a lot of people here today because my goal today is to convince you on why you should be hiring juniors and how that can benefit you, let's say the senior, and also your team. And of course, I'm gonna give you a lot of tips on how to make this happen. Disclaimer, I'm gonna be talking about juniors and seniors because I really want to highlight the two extremes, but everything I'm gonna say here is gonna apply to everyone, regardless the level. Let me start with a question. How many of you here have been in a hiring process at the company you're working for and had to look at CVs or coding challenges? A lot of people, nice. Okay, so those that were part of a hiring process, who finds it easy to find developers? No one, okay, that's interesting, but not a surprise, to be honest. We know that finding developers is hard. Um, I remember that it took me months to find my first job, and it was as a QA, as a quality assurance in a mobile team. That was my first job in tech. Um, I wasn't a developer at the time. Shortly after I joined, I remember my colleagues talking about how hard it was finding developers. And I grew up in Spain where finding a job, any job, is difficult. So for me, it was just normal that finding jobs in general was very difficult and it will take months or even years. So it was shocking, like, how can you cannot find people to work? I know that there are many factors, but this still shocked me. And to be honest, I never thought that it was going to be very difficult and complicated to find developers, and it will take so long. And one of the reasons is that, well, there's a high demand, and the market is in favor to candidates, right? Sadly, that also means that turnover is really high. Turnover means the frequency where employees come and go from my company. For example, only during my first year in tech, I saw 600 developers coming and going from my team. So why is it so hard to find developers? What do companies want that they cannot find? When it comes to hiring, companies want seniors. They prefer seniors. That may because seniors can take care of any task, because they bring experience, because they already have the knowledge, let's say. Some companies have even made statements about we are not hiring juniors. And they openly just say that we don't hire juniors nor interns because we can afford seniors. But we all know that seniors are not cheap. And not all companies can afford the same as big companies can. And besides, bringing juniors into your companies will give you some other benefits. So why don't we hire juniors? I remember that when I was working at my first tech company, they were discussing the hiring situation, and one of my colleagues said, why don't we hire juniors? Someone that just graduated from university and are looking for the first job, or someone that is switching careers. The answers I heard, probably you heard them too at some point. We don't want juniors because they cannot work alone. because they take a lot of time to get onboarded, because someone has to train them. We only want seniors. So my question is, where do seniors come from? No one is being born being a senior. No one is born being a senior. You all here have been a junior before, and you all had to look for your first job, right? And for juniors, it's not easy either. Some of you maybe have went to university and studied computer science, and after your studies, you got an internship and you got your first job. And we can say that it was fairly easy for you. Some of you went to university as well, but you didn't have this experience, this internship, so you had to look for a job. You eventually got it. But I'm sure that some of you even switched careers and had to search for the first job. It was really hard. We all were juniors at some point, and we all needed the first job. We needed our first opportunity. And juniors just need that first opportunity. And finding those is very hard. Imagine yourself now as a junior, and you were a junior. You finish your studies, and you want your first job. You start searching for open positions, and, well, turns out there are not many open positions without requiring experience for first level. You start looking at the requirements, and you see that they require to know many frameworks that you don't even know they existed. And of course, you don't meet all the requirements, so why are you gonna apply, right? And getting the first job as a junior, we all know that it's tough. Most of the time it's tough. But in this talk, I'm not gonna get into details on how to get your first job, but instead I want to talk about what it's like to be a junior and how you can help them. All right, let's say that now you search for a job and you got it. You have your first gig as a developer. But the struggle is not over yet. It actually just started. Meet the final boss of professional software development, the imposter syndrome. You, junior, got hired into a team of seniors, and you are the only junior there. The seniors are talking about libraries that you have not used or you just don't know they exist. They discuss things that you don't understand. So you start feeling like an imposter. You start feeling, I don't belong here. I don't know what I'm doing here. And internally, you start feeling fear. You are afraid that someone thinks that you are an imposter. You are afraid of asking too many questions involving your teammates. Afraid of making a mistake that can affect the company. Afraid that someone thinks, or everyone thinks, that you are not good enough. And I'm sure some of you have felt this way at some point, and we know that this is tough for everyone. But what you can do for helping in this situation, to help people, is to focus on the good things, because people bring lots of good things. And juniors will bring you also lots of good things. So let's focus on the positive things, because, yeah, they will bring great things into your teams, to you, and to your companies. Juniors will bring you fresh motivation. Have you ever felt demotivated at work? Demotivation is contagious, but also is motivation. And juniors will be very motivated to learn with you and to work with you, and you will feel this energy. Juniors will also bring you fresh knowledge. Juniors probably had some time to play with libraries that you didn't have time to work with yet. For example, let's say motion layout. And maybe even some juniors have knowledge, know things in other areas like web development or data science, mobile development in general. And all this knowledge is very valuable. Juniors also bring a flexible mindset. Seniors are not very flexible sometimes. We all know that. After years of working, you get comfortable with following certain approaches and using certain libraries, and sometimes seniors don't want to use something else. Perhaps because they want or you want to continue having a stable product, right? But sometimes, let's be honest, we don't have the motivation to learn something new. But juniors have a flexible mindset because they are willing to learn a lot. They have a learning mindset because of this flexible learning mindset, and they have a lot of motivation, they will be also happy to do simple tasks that you are, tired of doing over and over again, because those tasks in the end are going to be super helpful for juniors to learn a lot. And disclaimer, later I'm going to explain why, but you should not only give simple tasks to juniors. Okay, by now, I think we see that bringing juniors to the teams will be very good for us. However, it's not only the developers who have to be convinced, but also managers have a set of expectations. So, what do managers expect from juniors and seniors? Let's compare. Managers expect from juniors that they will be continuously learning, right? And from seniors, they are expected to be continuously learning too, because we as developers need to continuously learn. That's why we are all here learning today and tomorrow. And not because you are a senior, it means you can't just stop learning. You need to continue growing as a professional. Managers expect that juniors will be asking lots of questions, right? And from seniors, what do they expect? That they still ask lots of questions, but they are also willing to answer. Juniors are expected to start taking small tasks. As they learn, they will be able to gradually get bigger tasks. From seniors, well, we are expecting, or managers are expecting, that they can do almost anything, let's say. Then for juniors, from juniors is not expected, or managers don't expect them to know all the processes. For example, in general, or depending on the company, they are not expected to do the releases alone, or maybe work across teams. However, they should be learning these processes, to be growing. And seniors, well, they are more or less expected to be able to do almost anything. And finally, juniors are also expected to be guided, to need a guidance. And who's gonna provide this guidance? Seniors. Seniors are expected to be able to guide our juniors. You can see that the expectations for juniors and seniors are very similar. There are things that apply to everyone, and it's just that seniors have more responsibilities. That's it. I see your faces. I guess you are all kind of thinking, yeah, looks good, but what do I win myself by helping people or helping juniors? You're gonna win lots of things, because you are going to be guiding a junior through processes and explaining things. And this way you are going to show your company that you are able to lead. You also can start delegating things. And that's also a good thing. You can help someone learning more by let them do some tasks that for you are easy already, that you are comfortable doing. And that way you can focus on the tasks that require your expertise. But the most important thing you are getting from this is your own career growth. Because part of the role of a senior, you are expected to be able to guide and to mentor. So now I want to give you some tips on how to make this a reality. So first, what is mentoring? Try to think for a moment what mentoring is for you. For me, mentoring is not a teacher-student relationship. Okay. So for me, mentoring is not a teacher-student relationship, but it's the base of mentoring is sharing. And this works both ways. The first key point of mentoring is knowledge sharing. So how do you actually share your knowledge? Well, you are already sharing your knowledge when you are giving constructive answers on code reviews, or when you talk about that why you are using this library in your project because this other one didn't work, or when you share a talk, a video of a talk, or an article. You also share your knowledge when you discuss about an approach that you think it's gonna be very beneficial for your project. In many ways, you are already sharing your knowledge, and by doing that, you can mentor a junior. But to be able to mentor or to share your knowledge effectively, you also need to improve another skill, which is communication. Communication is probably one of the hardest skills to master. Think of effective communication. How can you explain a complex concept to a junior? Well, there are many things that can help you in this, but let's see an example. Let's say there's a new fancy screen that you have to build this sprint, and of course the junior wants to do it because, UI, and they can start showing their skills, they think that's cool, and this screen is quite simple, right? That's what they think, that we have an image, and we have some text and a couple of buttons. Tapping those buttons will trigger some API call, nothing fancy. But now, you have in mind your Android project, how it is. You are following MVVM. You follow repository pattern. You have use cases. You also use Stagger for dependency injection. Then you also use Rx. OK. So you know that this screen is not going to be that simple for the junior to build. How can you explain this to a junior? All these steps they have to follow. A good way of doing this is to work together, sitting together. But how can you make this effective? You can, for example, focus on a single topic. Let's say in our Android project, you will start explaining the architecture pattern and what they have to do and how it works, blah, blah. But one thing at a time. And it's OK to just say, hey, on this task, we are going to focus on the architecture pattern that we are following, but we won't focus on any other thing. And at the moment other things come up, you can just copy an example or guide them through via step by step and without going into details. And it's okay to say, hey, you don't need to understand everything the first time. And so you make them focus on what is needed today. This way you are gonna introduce topics and things slowly, but without overwhelming them. Another thing that I really recommend is to sketch ideas. Have pen and paper, simply, in hand. Sketch ideas, draw, write on the whiteboard, anything. This is gonna help visualizing your explanation, and it's gonna make it easier for juniors, for anyone listening to you, your explanations, to understand this complex thing. So, following this, I'm gonna try to sketch everything we have to do for our new simple screen. So, since our screen has to make an API request, we are gonna create some API client, right? And then maybe, depending how we do it, maybe we will create a service to serve this to anyone that will require the request. And this is only the data layer. Then you have to explain that we have the domain layer. And so we need to create a repository, and then the use case. And then comes the presentation layer, which will contain the layout, and the view model, and the view, and the screen, and the navigator. So all these things are very difficult to explain just by words. And using pen and paper, whiteboard, or anything, it's gonna help people connecting the parts and understanding. But also it's gonna be very helpful the next time they have to build another screen, because they will have this reference. So remember, sketch. Other things I find important also apply to anyone, always, and not only seniors. Be constructive. When reviewing code, always offer an alternative or an example. Be constructive. Do not say, why did you do this? Instead, you can say, as I understand, you're doing this because of this reason. However, have you considered doing this other thing instead? Also, instead of reviewing code on GitHub and just leave comments, what you can do is also take the conversation offline and have this conversation with the person. This will make it feel closer. It's also good. It's not gonna feel like a personal attack. Keep your criticism in private and praise in public. And this has to be always, always. And this will also apply to code reviews. Have it in mind. Okay, so by now we have our junior working with us, but which kind of tasks can they do? Well, you need to be aware of the knowledge they have and their capacity. You will see this by them doing small tasks and with time. But always challenge their capacities. Don't give them always the simple task, always over and over again. Give them diverse tasks so they can see the whole project and different things, all the layers. You also don't want them to get bored. Something very important is making sure that you have a good environment, and good environment with good mood and without sexism. Everyone should be feeling comfortable to ask any question. If seniors ask questions each other without attacking them, so if seniors ask questions without attacking each other, juniors will also ask questions. And lastly, I know that not everyone is fun of pair programming, but this is a great tool to help your juniors grow, but also yourself. Pair programming is not, you got what I say, but instead is a conversation around the problem. Let the junior take over the keyboard, sit on their space, so they feel comfortable. Pair programming is gonna boost their learning, also yours. And now some tips for juniors as well, because juniors can do many things to help on this situation. It's important to keep in mind that juniors have to interrupt your colleagues, like they have to interrupt their colleagues. Do not stop ever from asking questions. Do not wait for the right moment. The best time to ask questions is at any time. And what if you got stuck? What can you do? Well, I think getting stuck is part of our job, but the thing is that not everyone has the same capacity to move forward. So what can you do when you get stuck? You can, for example, time box it. Maybe give yourself half a day to solve a problem before asking questions. That helps a lot learning things and troubleshooting yourself. I usually do this. I give myself 4 hours of research before I ask to my colleagues. Something that also helps a lot when you get stuck is taking breaks. And the thing is that sometimes we simply get stuck because we need a break. And I'm sure that everyone here got stuck at some point with something. And you were working and you got stuck and you're like, don't get it. You just closed your laptop and went away, like the kitchen or home or whatever. And then the next time you open the laptop and you see the problem you had yesterday, you see the solution. Take breaks, please. Also, something that helps a lot is when you get stuck is rubber duck debugging. Rubber duck debugging is a way of debugging your code where you have a rubber duck and you are explaining to this figurine what your problem is. You start explaining, this is what I want to achieve and the steps you've done, and this way you'll already see the problems you have. I do this a lot without knowing, without using a rubber duck. And I call it human duck debugging because I find myself most of the time when I get stuck with something asking my teammates, hey, I'm stuck on this, I don't know how to do it. And I start explaining, like, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I've done. I go through the steps, and at some point, while explaining, I get stuck at one of the lines. I'm like, I cannot explain what I did here. And I found the problem myself. And it's the same. And I'm sure that some of you have experienced this before. Another very, when you're a junior and you have to start a task and you don't know how to do it, if you don't have any idea, what you can do is to ask for guidance, right? You can ask a teammate to help you creating a list of steps you can follow. But what if you have some idea? Well, you ask for guidance too. Because instead of creating a small list of to-dos yourself, what you can do is create what you think you should be doing and ask for guidance so your teammates can help you spot early mistakes because they maybe know things, some constraints in your project that will affect the way of working with this task. This helps a lot when you don't know about the project, regardless your level. Then copy pasting is okay. Think we all do it. I do it, and it's okay to Google things. and it's okay to copy from Stack Overflow. The important thing here is that when you're copy-pasting something, you understand what you're doing, what's the problem you have, and what's the solution you're copying doing. I also suggest you here to look for examples within the project. This way, you also are gonna see the patterns they use, how they do it, and you will keep it consistent. Many times, juniors, and not so juniors, you ask yourself, I don't know, should I know this they are talking about? I'm afraid to ask and say anything. Well, you juniors, please tell your colleagues that you don't know, you don't understand something. I know it's difficult, you have to do it. But once you start being open and saying, I don't know, you will realize of something. Sometimes your colleagues don't know either. And this is for everyone. If you're open saying, I don't know, other colleagues will feel comfortable and will do the same. Hearing someone saying that they don't know makes you feel less imposter. And with this, everyone wins. We have seen that bringing juniors on board is doable. It's perfectly doable. And of course, your team needs to be ready, but the benefits in the end, the benefits that juniors bring will compensate it. Are you still not convinced of hiring juniors? Remember, you will help juniors to progress in their careers, and that is a rewarding experience that your team and you are gonna enjoy. And you will learn. You will learn a lot, because the best way of mastering something is to teach it. And you and your junior developers, you and your senior developers will become better by bringing less experienced people on board and training them. There are no seniors without juniors. Sure, you can pay all the seniors you want, but not everyone can afford that. Not every single company can afford that. Juniors will never forget their mentors. When you dedicate some part of your time helping others, they will value and remember that, even if you don't think so. This can also help you in the future. Let's say when you're looking for your next job. I'm very helpful to many people for all the help I got when I was a junior, growing as a developer. Thank you a lot to droidCon London for having me here, for having invited me to be here today to share my ideas with you all. No matter if you're a junior, senior, manager, any level, I hope you all here have learned something today and that you can start applying into your work. Do you have any ideas, any tricks, anything that help you? Share them on Twitter. Let's continue the conversation, please. Thank you. So I will be here for a while around the conference, 2 days. But if you also have questions now, I think we have time, right? If not, you will find me close to the coffee machine, I guess. Now I can have coffee.